So I've got more partnerships through being in the C2C course. And even with like my email, the conversions that I've seen with being able to apply a lot of what I learned has been amazing. And I just can't wait to see how much more growth.
All right. Welcome to the next episode of the Beauty and the Brand podcast. I'm so excited to have Olivia Sanchez here. She's the founder of Sudz Cauldron. It's a hair care brand born out of her search for hair products without cheap fillers and toxic ingredients found in mainstream products. She set out to change that by creating solid bars designed for real curl struggles that are salon quality, sustainable, inclusive, and that don't try to fix you, but instead celebrate your roots and reveal what's already so powerful. So welcome, Olivia. Olivia is also one of our C2C members currently as well.
Hello, Aggie. Thank you for having me here today.
Yeah, I'm so excited because Olivia, I would say, and we talked about this recently, but you are somebody who pretty much, I think, showed up to the majority of our last cohort's calls. And every single call we had, you put in extensive work between each calls. And so no wonder when we met again during our summer sales workshop or summer sales sprint, you were like, oh, I've had X% growth. I, was able to, increase or double or triple my monthly revenue on DTC. So was not surprised. And of course we still have work to do and continue to grow. But today we're going to, well, actually let me set the stage. So talk to me about kind of where you're at, a few months ago before we started C2C, and talk to me about where you're at right now.
Yeah, so prior to joining C2C, one of the biggest struggles that I had was I really didn't have I never took the time to really lay out the foundational work that I now realize was so crucial for me that everything falls onto to grow this, cult status brand. And there are so many whys that I have as to why I started this brand. And for me, it was so hard to really put it into words and get that clarity on like, what is that bigger why as to, why I started this brand. And, prior to starting C2C, I felt like I kept hitting a wall when it came to growing. Like I would grow my brand, but then I'd run into this wall, or I felt like I was kind of mirroring a lot of other brands and kind of falling into this place where I was like, what is Sudz Cauldron, and how do I stand out in such a saturated market? But through the C2C course, it really allowed me to niche down. And through some of the courses that you will go through for anyone who decides to join, you gain more clarity with the actual research that you put in being a survey. And that really was an eye-opener for me throughout all of this to really understand my customer more when it comes to even speaking to my customer. Like, who am I talking to? The whole time I thought I was speaking to one person, that it was not the person I was thinking was on the other end reading.
Yeah, it was totally different in the end.
Yeah, who I was marketing. So that was something that has definitely grown. I feel like I took 100 steps back, but boy, we are set up and we are going to take 100 steps forward.
I love that. And I want to just put a pin in. You said something, and I took note of it. You said, I was mirroring other brands. And that struck a chord for me because I would do the same thing too. Like when I started my fragrance brand in the beginning, where I was like kind of throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. I wasn't sure like what I was, exactly doing. I thought I had a niche, but in the end, I didn't feel confident in it. And I felt like I was constantly mirroring and not copycatting like directly, but just being like, well, this brand's doing this and this brand's doing that and this brand's doing this strategy. And all I saw was the top of the iceberg, but I didn't know any different. And I didn't know how to set it up. Like it took me a lot, like that whole cold status brand framework that we built was from a lot of like trial and error over years and years of time. And so what I want to share is that like I was in the same shoes as you. And I was also feeling like I was kind of mirroring other brands in all these different ways. And it was just like a hodgepodge of like this and this and this and this. So Can totally relate. I feel like a lot of people can relate to that.
It's kind of crazy how you kind of start this brand and you start with so much passion. And in a way, too, I feel like going through those courses have kind of led me back to the start. Like, kind of that initial passion that it's like, this is kind of why I started. But then when you start the brand, you kind of start then like seeing others similar that you're like, oh, well, I should be doing that. Or maybe I should. And next thing you know it, you get caught in this like web of like almost like an identity crisis that you're like, well, who am I now? Like, I feel like I've kind of lost myself through the way. And this has kind of allowed me to like reel myself back in and stay focused on who, as a brand.
It's so sneaky. It's so sneaky. You start out with like a core, you start out with this clear idea. And then once you launch it, you know what it is? I think it's like once you put yourself out in the market, you're hit with so many almost limiting beliefs. And I think even more so as women, like it's like, oh, that's not good enough, or that's not exactly right, or like someone's doing it better. They must be doing it better. They must be doing it the right way. And so it just becomes this like mixture of like random things like glued together. And so I think the whole point of the work that we do is making it crystal clear, one piece after another, after another, after another. Like there's no other brand like yours.
Yes.
Right. And like only you could drive that brand forward now. Like driver, there's no one like it's the identity is super clear.
Yes.
So you had mentioned, so we're working right now, sort of going back and forth on your website. You have your redesign, you optimized your website. We're continuing to make those, small refinements. Came with a great question. And I love that you asked this question. You mentioned the 7 stages of beauty brand success path, which is something we talk about inside C2C. And you mentioned, choosing one primary marketing channel. Talk to me about this question. Talk to me a little bit more about what you're thinking.
Again, for those who haven't taken the course, you go through several different, you do different assignments, okay? And that help you kind of identify your target customer. And through these assignments, I discovered that my customer really discovers my products through friends and family, which I think is very common for a majority of us. But the secondary was because my customer, I'm speaking to a millennial Latina audience. They tend to find their products through social media, and specifically Instagram and Facebook, which is kind of the same thing. But they search for new products on Instagram, but in also looking at the statistics, through even my Shopify platform, it kind of was a little bit both like between Google searches as well as the Instagram. But so I'm kind of leaning, I don't know, I'm kind of having a little bit of mixed direction because I know through the guidance that you provided, it states to really narrow down one and stick with one. So I want to, now that I know the foundational work of who I'm speaking to, I'm kind of now stuck at the next stop. Like, okay, where do I lean in more? Would it be SEO, or should I stay more consistent and go more hard into the Instagram based on that?
Right. So basically SEO versus Instagram, right? Okay, so I love this question because I think it's really important one. So the way that we are going to look at the whole ecosystem is like, first is top of funnel, which is reach, right? So that's where you're getting just new people cold traffic, new people who've never, had any experience with Sudz Cauldron. They are, we're trying to find those people. They're out there somewhere, right? They don't know you yet. But usually your reach platform is like typically might be like a social platform. So like YouTube or Instagram or TikTok. And it's very much specific to each brand. Each brand is going to be different. Now, I just want to put a caveat here for anyone who's listening. We typically work with majority of our founders are self-funded. And so I want to put a pin in this because I know I'm always going to have somebody who's like saying, well, you need to have an omni-channel approach. You need to be doing, multiple sales channels, multiple marketing channels. Yes, if you are a funded business or you have a team in place that can execute each of those channels effectively and to the best of its success, right? If you don't, which in our case, our founders typically are either starting, solar founded, or they have a small team, or they are self-funding their business. we are taking a different approach. And so what we find what works best is, like I said, having that one marketing channel for reach and one sales channel. And then once you grow, you obviously expand. So first, top of funnel is reach, right? So you're choosing whether it's Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, it could be SEO as well, but I want to put a little caveat here. So anything that's like finding new people, right? Then you have your nurture. So you have your next layer, and that's where you're nurturing your audience, your community. So that could also actually be Instagram if you're doing like a lot of engagement and conversations and conversations back and forth. That could be Substack, especially if there's conversations happening there. It could be a Facebook group. It could be a forum. It could be email, right? If you're kind of opening up the dialogue, it could be a number of different platforms where you're nurturing that audience, right? And then the last bottom of funnel is your conversion. So that's where the actual sale is happening. So on your website, typically on your website. So here's how I think about SEO. It is top of funnel and it is reach because you're finding new people through SEO. However, if we're talking about smaller businesses, the way I see it is like SEO is kind of set it and not forget it, but set it. And once it's set, you kind of have a good framework or a good baseline to work off of, while Instagram or TikTok is something you have to feed regularly, right? Like regularly on a weekly, basis, you have to feed the machine. So what's nice about SEO is that it once you put your keywords in, once you optimize your website, and because of the work you and I have done already, your keywords aren't going to really be changing that much. It's not like you're going in there every single month, like being like, oh, now we're talking about now the main keywords on this page are this, or like, no, it doesn't work that way. It's like you have your keywords for your product page, you have your keywords for your homepage, you have your meta descriptions, you have your photo descriptions, etc. So I see it as like SEO, you put in the effort and you put in the time to do that piece right? And then once it's done, you kind of can move on to something that is another reach channel, like a marketing reach channel that you are feeding consistently. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. I think that was where I was kind of unclear because I know, like in reviewing it, it kind of mentioned like picking just one, and I know SEO was kind of within that. That I was like, well, which one should I do? Like, should I focus my time on this? Like, I want to be more intentional, especially with being like a self-funded and starting small. It's like being more intentional with where I'm putting the most of my work.
Here's another like twist. So what we typically teach is like with any website, you want to have like a few pieces of content, like really good, juicy content on your website, like blog content that is SEO rich, specific to your brand, specific to the problem you're solving, right? But that could be a reach strategy where you are consistently putting out blog content.
I kind of started it, and this is something that I would love to pick your brain on. So the way I've kind of started with like in working with Nancy was you kind of start off with the blog. You create that juicy content. From that blog, you create then these content, you redact, you break it up and you do it through your email. And then from your email, then that kind of trickles down to the social media where then you can have multiple different posts related to that set topic. To where you're kind of touching, in a sense, both the SEO, you're feeding that consistently, but then you're being more consistent with the Instagram. But, I was just kind of confused by that, where I'm like, wait, should I be focusing more on this? And am I kind of thinking a bit wrong? Like, well, how should I?
And I like that. And I think, there's with AI now, right? Like things like Opus Clip are out there, CapCut are out there, where whatever your chosen reach channel is, there's also podcasts, right? So it could be blog content that's getting broken up into bits and pieces into social and email, or it could be podcast episodes that are broken up into, bits and pieces and for email, etc. And so you can have a human doing that, or you can have AI doing that. Now the challenge becomes like, right now we're in a type of economy, and this is just very recently, I think, this year, where we're seeing a shift from hyper expansive content creation, so attention economy, to a trust economy. Okay. So while that strategy absolutely has been a great one, we're now seeing the shift that's happening where you are volume of content used to be the case of like grabbing attention. And now the volume content is no longer stopping the scroll.
Yeah.
So we're kind of, it's like now we're kind of shifting things into, okay, well, I know, right? I know it's a constantly changing on us, but that's like, if that's the beauty of entrepreneurship. Like if you're a relatively adaptable person, you're going to thrive. If you struggle with that, it might be hard for you. And I know that's not you, but
yeah.
So because of the shift that we're starting to see, and we've been sort of seeing over the last few months, where I see things going is a lot more quality focused and really being hyper intentional with the things that you're putting out. And to do that, right for one specific channel, you may need to forego the sort of, distribution model of like taking a large piece of content, breaking it out, breaking down, because of this sort of challenge we're seeing with stopping the scroll.
Yeah.
So yeah, it can be. I mean, it's tricky, but I think both have a response to the way that our audiences are responding to it, if that makes sense. But I think in terms of in your case, like because you mentioned like friends and family, right, was first and foremost. And then you mentioned
Instagram.
Oh, and so this is the other thing too, is like, if you're able to give it a twist, like each piece of content that's broken down, if you're able to really optimize each piece for that particular channel, awesome. But if you find that bandwidth doesn't allow you for that, then we may need to just be hyper focused on one specific channel and, set the others aside.
Yes.
So in your case, it's friends and family, right? I'm just looking at my notes. And so that would be like, in that case, you're looking at, a referral system for sure. And that's something that you can, once you plug in, can be pretty automated. You can, once you set up your referral system, it's a matter of like including that link in every single email, sharing it with your friends to share with friends. But in your case, the second one was direct or Instagram?
It was Instagram based on my survey, but from what I see on Shopify, that's actually converting to sales. It was like just a little bit above. They were kind of tied. It was the Google.
Because they're tied, I kind of feel like because they're tied, I would say first step is to optimize your SEO, like on the site, right? So kind of that will kind of set you up for the basics. Then I think because they're equal, it could be that you can test and see if you can take like a piece of blog content, like what Nancy was sharing with you, and, piece it apart into Instagram. But if you're not seeing the conversions from Instagram, right? Or vice versa, you're spread thin. And so you're kind of like just kind of repurposing stuff without it being very intentional to that platform. And you're not seeing either move the needle, like neither the blog nor Instagram is moving the needle. Then you'll want to double down and choose one.
Okay.
And you can track these. I mean, we can get into this. I can send you some information on this, but you can track where every single purchase is coming from using UTM links.
That is what I am focusing on this weekend. The UTM links and the EEA, I think it was like EAT as well, embedding that. I'll have to double check what I had sent you. But there was something else when it comes to specifically with SEO marketing that I was advised by someone else who's currently in the same journey. They're like, you got to make sure that you're putting, that you're feeding the system and allowing it to recognize your brand by incorporating these specific things. So that's the next thing. Now that I'm doing everything in like parts. It's like now the website. So it's like, let's do that. But that was where I was kind of mix. I'm like, do I kind of just stay here, or should I kind of weave in both, or just stick with one other?
Yeah, I mean, to give it, see if you decide. And let me ask you, well, what do you think? In if I ask you, do you have the capacity to create like weekly blog content plus, let's say 3 pieces of Instagram, high quality pieces of Instagram content every week? Do you think that's in your bandwidth?
Possibly. So what right now I've kind of put myself like on a schedule where it's like currently starting off with just 2 Instagram posts a week. Like I have it because I'm also really where I've kind of seen a lot of growth come from is my email marketing. So the way I've done it, it's like now it's like going to be like more of like every 2 weeks with the blog content so that I can then create on a weekly basis. I've been creating the email marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Then through that, it's like 2 days a week email and then 2 days a week the social media. So I've been kind of more with that. But then the blog content, that's a new thing I just started this month. So I'm keeping it every 2 weeks with that for now until more in routine. But that's kind of where I'm at. But that also is where you kind of fall into this pattern, like where should I focus the time, the little time that you have to get the most out of it, you know?
Absolutely. And the email is like a must, right? So that's your nurture. That's also, it's also like pretty much conversion as well.
Yeah.
That's a must, right? But I would say that, capacity is the biggest struggle for our founders. And so it's seeing, can I keep doing this the way I'm doing this at the highest quality? And definitely the UTM links, if you can observe, once you set those up, and we do actually have a training on that. So once you set that up, looking over a 3-month period of time, you will have a better understanding and sense of where those sales are coming from, because you could be, so this is where it gets so tricky. It's like you could be getting or creating really good, juicy content on Instagram that's getting a lot of likes and engagement and follows, and you're growing your following or you're growing your engagement, but then those aren't actually converting to sales.
Exactly.
And so that's where you can actually put UTM links into every email you create that you send out. You can put UTM links into all the different, like into Reels, bio, like you can separate it out into Reels, bios, posts, DMs on Instagram. Like that's how specific you can make the UTM links. So it's cool. You can really track where every single conversion is coming from. And then you can say, okay, because of my bandwidth, I'm just going to hyper focus on this one area.
Yeah. I have found that, at least with my audience, when it comes to email, my audience, like the customer, really enjoys me kind of going more in depth and kind of explaining in more detail a lot of like even the ingredients or why this, it's like they really enjoy the reading. It's almost like a mini blog in their email that they get. But on Instagram, when it comes to the same thing, even breaking down an ingredient, there isn't as much interest.
Yeah. So it could be that, maybe it'll be interesting to see whether your particular target customer is the person who is interested in ingredients, or do they just want to read like and educate themselves? Or is it Instagram where it's like, oh, they just, the people who are on there who aren't as engaged in the ingredients, they aren't shopping. Or maybe vice versa, right? They are the ones that are shopping and they are more like, maybe they do just like the surface level stuff. Or, right, it could be, it could also be that's, you're catching them on Instagram that's more kind of surface level, fun, entertaining type of content. And then it's like, oh, I'm interested, or like, tell me more. And then they start to do a little bit deeper, research and learning from you on the blog.
Yeah, I find that on Instagram, people are kind of just, and even watching, like when I go places and I watch people on Instagram, how they're just scrolling and they're not really taking the time to read. Like on the other hand, I really like to read like those lengthy posts. I will read it. I will sit there and read it, you guys. But somebody like my husband, he's not like, he sees those long things. He's like, I don't have time for this. Like he likes to see, he's more of the people that like to be engaged by like, even like the funny video, like the videos, like talk about your product, but in a really fun way. That would catch his attention. And I find that a lot of my customers too, the ones that are most engaged when I do the long script and I go more in detail, are like my shop owner, like my retail partners who are also passionate. Like they're the ones that are most engaged on that, but the customers are kind of like, I don't really care about that. But when I make fun videos, like when I'm in the past, I've made even like, here's some fun like summer hair tutorials that you can do, or or here's some like anything like that's kind of video, like, or me, I've shown like even videos of me with like the product, like this is a, or me washing my hair. Those kind of get more appeal from than my customer, but maybe not from my retail, maybe from them too, but more like that. It has definitely stopped people from scrolling.
So do more of that. Because at the end of the day, like if Instagram is obviously we want to track it, but like typically for Instagram, it's kind of very top of funnel. So it's people who don't know you. They're not like involved yet with Sudz Cauldron. They're not like tapped in. They're not loyal. They probably are not customers yet. So you do like the memes, the entertaining content, the educational content that isn't like specific only to Sudz Cauldron, like best hair, how to achieve my best hair in the summer. That is going to appeal to that wider net. You cast that wider net, and then you kind of it trickles down. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see like what your results show too.
Even posts, funny enough, with like me, like if I show me in it, like a picture or something, it's like people like. But then it's like if I'm talking about a product, like, oh, here's our Helix shampoo. People are like it's like it doesn't stop the scroll. So I have no, but I am so happy that I really, really got advised to really connect on email, because boy, that has been a game changer for me. And it really allows me to stop, to catch those people who are actually opening up their emails and taking the time to read, who want to kind of, learn more about my product, and also make it in such a digestible way for them, to then leave blogs like, oh, do you want to learn more? And also for anyone, I've noticed too, with stories, that's where you can kind of like, I recently shared my first blog, and I saw so much engagement from sharing it more in my story. And I don't think it would have been the same if I shared it as a post, like just like, hey guys, check out my blog.
Stories is getting like a lot of engagement.
Yeah, I'm still playing around with figuring out how to find that balance and make it fun on both ends. But that has been really interesting to notice on both.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I can't wait for you to like set up the UTM links, and then we can dive in further into like actual conversions off of social, or at least the people who maybe found you as cold, they were totally new to you and totally,
Yes.
unaware of you, and, seeing actually ended up converting, and then even going back and seeing like, okay, when did this person come in? What were they engaged with? It will give us even more insight. Okay. So Olivia, let me ask you, so tell me a little bit more about like what projects did you ultimately implement over the course of the last few months in C2C?
So through C2C, I have really laid out the pavements. And by that, I mean, I got really hyper focused on who my target customer is. And that I feel like what took up a majority of my time through the course, really nailing that why, the mission. And I think even at one point, I kind of got stuck with that. And you even told me, Olivia, move on. Like it will come to you. Like we kind of got to move on past that. Because I kind of I was taking each lesson seriously. So, which is great. But man, I was stuck in some points. I'm like, I should be in this chapter now. But anyways, that it allowed me to really lay out that foundational why of my business, who really discover who my customer is, who I'm speaking to at the end of the day. And now through that, I've basically did a whole revamp on my website, because I initially started off right before C2C. I had just moved over from using Squarespace to Shopify. And that game changer, I wish I would have done it much sooner. Squarespace is an awesome platform, but not if you're selling a product or if you're a product-based business. And I literally had to start from scratch. I had lost all the previous reviews I had got. So everything you see now is like new and fresh. So having to now, everything at the end of the day, what I learned was everything falls on your why and who your customer is. And that was something that I, again, mirroring different brands, again, not really knowing who I was. I kept hitting that wall. And when you went into my website, the same things that I was talking about, it's like you didn't really see it on my website.
Which is so common. It's amazing.
Yeah, I was talking about this here, and then I was talking about that over here. I was all over the place, you guys. And knowing that, I've now been able to dial in on my website and now take the next step with like the SEO and putting in the UTM links. Like I'm like, I think of it like like my mom says that she's like in Spanish, she's like, te ventaste como una rana un pozo sin agua, which means you threw yourself into a well, like you threw yourself to a well without water. And you're like a frog, like without water. That's kind of what I did when I started my business. I kind of just popped in one day, like, hey guys, where's Sudz Cauldron? I'm here. What's next? And boy, it's been an adventure, and it's been, again, a lot of steps, a lot of progress, even prior to going to C2C. But because I didn't really have a lot of that foundational work laid out, again, I kept hitting that wall where I'm like, okay, like, even being able to land podcasts or being able to land even magazine covers and it not really ever converting. And I know sometimes, again, with magazines, it's more of like the show than actually converting. But even then, I felt like even reading some of those or rewatching some of those podcasts, I was like, man, I felt like what I said wasn't really what I wanted to say. Like, how do I, like I kind of, and then you'd go to a different podcast and it's like, I'd kind of talk, like I was all over the place with each one kind of adjusting to a different why. And all of them true to my story. Again, there were so many whys, but C2C really allowed me to really nail that one why, that bigger why.
And one why. I love that. And I think kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier with SEO and social, one of the things that's currently really kind of taking front and like being like one of the things that's kind of front and center right now in terms of what effectiveness and what's working is sharing, leaning into those why and those values that we've worked on, but really being very, very intentional in how contrarian you can be and powerful you can be, doubling down on those values. And I've been saying that for a long while, but it really is coming to, it is really what's making a bigger impact in terms of breaking through the noise and point of view, which is kind of all the same thing, right? Point of view being such an important aspect. Like, this is why, like, this is my point of view. This is why only I can share this story. This is why only I can create this product, right? And that actually ties in with what you were talking about with SEO, with the EAT, because EAT is all about like, trust and credibility and authority. And it all ties in together really at the end of the day. It's like trust, building that credibility, trust, and that authority now more than ever, just because of the noise, just because there is so much. So yeah, it all comes full circle.
Yes. And I will add to someone else who may be in the same position as me is really learning to trust your gut and really be yourself. Because I feel like sometimes, even like with me coming from like a Latin background, it's like sometimes there is this thing of not feeling like Latina enough. So then to even start on that in my brand, and after doing the survey and realizing, oh my gosh, a lot of my audience is Latina like me. Sometimes I feel like, and this is also, just like from personal, like growing up, it just that feeling of not being enough, to then creating a brand that is really trying to bring my Latina community in. And, especially when it comes to wellness and our health, it's like that has been something that I've kind of had to let this guard down in my personal life of just really knowing, like, Olivia, like, you are Latina enough. Olivia, you are enough in general, period.
Absolutely. 1,001%.
And your story is uniquely yours.
It's your story. Exactly.
Yeah. So that is another thing. And I think that sometimes when you don't recognize that at first is when you do kind of fall into that mirroring. And, you kind of fall into, trying to be someone else and losing yourself in the process.
Absolutely. I've been there myself. And one thing too is, Becky, who I was talking to you about, who was, I think, on our last podcast, she really leaned into like the non-practicing jujitsu practitioner. Her kind of, limiting belief was that she wasn't practicing. She was only purple belt and wasn't practicing jujitsu, regularly enough. And at one point, she even took a break for like a year and a half or something like that. And so she felt like a fraud to kind of come out and be like, yeah, my brain is for jujitsu practitioners. But then she leaned in.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was so cool because a lot of people, and especially women, were like, oh, yeah, I took a pause too because I had kids. Oh, I took a pause too because I took this new role and had to move. I took a pause too. And I also am somebody who, like, certainly we look up to the black belts of whatever it is, right? Like the ultimate Latina, right? Like, who is the ultimate Latina?
Yeah, she doesn't exist. Yeah.
It doesn't exist. So it's like being almost leaning into that, whatever that is, that thing that gives you that sort of that chirping of like, this is where I'm not good enough. Like, this is where I'm not, my hair's not curly enough, right? It's like, well, this is my version. And there's millions of people in the world. And that's the beauty of it. It's like, there are people that are going to relate to you. So it is something that I started to talk a lot about, like my immigrant background. For a while, I didn't talk about that as much in my content. And then I started to talk more about like my immigrant background, my Eastern European background. All of a sudden, I had all these people be like, oh, I'm Polish too, or I'm Eastern European too, or I relate to this and I relate to that, and other things too. And it's amazing how these things that make us different and unique bring us together.
Yes. When you allow it to.
Yes. When you allow it to. Exactly.
When you allow it. When you allow yourself to own it. That, I think, through C2C kind of, and even leaning into my Latina community, it's like that kind of helped with me kind of reigniting with like, you know what? I can, and even when I look at like past like marketing content going back through, it's like there was little snippets where it's like I would talk about like, my background, but at some part of it, it's like I never really leaned in all the way because I kind of felt like, oh, I might come off like, I don't know. It was just, again, this mind thing. And now even when I post content like that, it's like, if anything, it gets more engagement. If anything, it connects me even more. And the only person that was stopping me was honestly just myself.
So now we're leaning in.
Yeah, I wanted to just give to someone else. Lean in, be yourself. And, the only person that's stopping you is you. So.
Absolutely. And for all of us. So tell me, what tangible results did you ultimately get from C2C so far? Doing another cohort coming soon.
Yeah. So through this too, I have been able to connect more with retail, even retail partnerships, being able to get more. So I've got more partnerships through being in the C2C course. And even with like my email, the conversions that I've seen with being able to apply a lot of what I learned has been amazing. And I just can't wait to see how much more growth comes the more that I continue to lean into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's only the beginning.
Only the beginning, but you've already made so much progress. And then tell me a little bit more about, like, did you have any hesitations in working together, and what ultimately made you decide to move forward?
So what ultimately made me decide to move forward was one of I think I initially attended one of your mini courses. Like it was on Facebook. And a lot of what you, like, again, I had made progress. I'm not saying that a lot of what I did prior to C2C wasn't great. Like I made a lot of progress, but again, I always found myself hitting that wall. And I can't remember exactly what you said, but there was one of the things that like, you're like, oh, if you have had this kind of, you might be experiencing an issue in this. I'm like, oh my God, like that's me. I was like, that's it. Yeah, that's me. So that kind of is ultimately what ignited me to join C2C. But in joining as well, what I've loved is that I think, the entrepreneur journey is so lonely. And I've never, in my family, I have family members who own a business, but no one owns a beauty brand. And there is You know, it is so different. And they don't sell product-based business. They're in construction.
Yeah, that's hard.
So different, yeah. So I have finally found my people, I feel, through this community, and people that I still stay connected, that I continue to stay connected with, even during this time off, that I've been able to now lean in to and ask them for advice, like, hey, what are you doing for this? It has been a really supportive group. And I think that that's what I love the most, is that everyone there, it has never felt like people are kind of not really wanting to share their success or what helped them in their business, because they feel like it's going to diminish their light. It's like everyone's like, oh my gosh, like, I enjoy seeing people's successes and people cheering each other on and people so willing to help each other.
Yes.
I think that has been, if anything, the biggest takeaway of it all has been the support.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. I love that you feel that way, and like that you feel that camaraderie and you feel that people are open. It's something we always set the stage with. I think it's something we even specifically like screen for, in terms of like the right people that come in, because it's not the place for people who are fearful that someone's gonna like steal their idea. We've never had that happen, but like there, like it's just not that place, because the intention is that we are open and willing to share.
Yeah.
What would you say to anyone who is on the fence about joining C2C?
I would tell you that if you find yourself hitting a brick wall in the same way that I have, or if you find, especially when it comes to your why, and that was, I think that that's a majority of what C2C focuses on in the initial courses, is really laying out that groundwork. I felt like for the longest, I couldn't really, it's like I kind of knew what it was, but I couldn't really put like a pin on it. I think that this course really allowed me like the hand holding to really, and the guidance to really understand that part of my business, and which kind of tied in a way with myself as well, as the founder. So I think if that's something that you've been struggling with as well, I think that this would be a really good course for you, because everything falls on top of that at the end of the day.
Absolutely. How can you tell us a little bit about like what's your best selling product? Where can people shop it? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so the best-selling product is our curl line, and that's our Clementine shampoo is our number one seller. And with our conditioner bars, our Haven conditioner is our number one seller. What I love about these products is, if you're somebody with curls, so if you've never tried a bar before, let me just start kind of there real quick. It is a concentrated bar. So we're eliminating the water content compared to the traditional liquid product that you purchase in your supermarket, in your store. We're eliminating the water. Oftentimes, a lot of the water just dilutes the product, and you're going to get the water as well in your shower. But besides the point, when it's a fully concentrated bar that allows it to last even longer, and a lot of those nutrients that you're expecting to get from your product, you're literally applying that bar directly in your hair. So you really do feel the difference. There's no transitional period. You feel the difference immediately. And what I love, we offer tailored, targeted solutions, different products. But the reason why the Clementine and Haven have been so great and one of our best sellers is because compared to a lot of curl products or even curl bars, they won't dry out your hair. Even when you feel like a bar to bar comparison, so many of them, in order to keep it a hard bar, you add a lot of the surfactants, which is what offers that cleanse. But so often it overly cleanses your hair, which is why I have found time after time again, people saying, I've tried a bar, it didn't really work for me. I felt like it was too hard. And when you feel a bar, it is still a solid bar, but it is a lot softer because I really wanted to ensure that a lot of those nourishing components were there. And that is literally, it's almost like a conditioning shampoo with our Clementine. And so many of our customers, I feel like our curl community is the hardest to convert. But boy, when they convert, it has been the top seller because it really helps hydrate and define your curls. And it's just a game changer, really.
Talk to me too about like one bar is equal to three bottles. A typical shampoo.
Yeah, a typical full-size bar lasts around It can last it's typically 3 months of product, but we have had customers that go even 5 months. Again, it depends on usage, your length of hair, the thickness of your hair. But if you've never tried a product, I also have mini products and they're about a month of use. They look small, but they like pack a punch. It's like they last a month, so it's a great way for someone who's maybe on the fence about trying a bar. You've heard about it and you're not really sure. Try the mini. It's a really easy way. Yeah, it's a really easy step forward, and I almost guarantee, like I guarantee that you're gonna want to come back and get the full size, which will last you even longer.
It's amazing. Like I love that factor of it because I know in your case, like you really, really value on an authentic, real way sustainability. That was at the core of the business from the very beginning. And so it's really cool to be able to see, like, to understand, like, okay, but what, like, how is this sustainable? And the fact that it's, doesn't have all of that water that's in a typical liquid bottle, right? And how much more you get out of using a bar versus, buying a bottle of liquid shampoo, like game changer.
And even too, a lot of the products now, I mean, mind you, the beauty world has been changing so much, especially when it comes to hair care. There are so many products now, even in the liquid aisle, that aren't necessarily bad. I mean, the plastic is what we're trying to get rid of. But there's a lot of clean products now that are coming out. And one thing that's a really big differentiator as well with our curl products is that we don't incorporate any kind of phenoxyethanol, which is so frequently found in baby products and almost every curl product that I've seen, bar or liquid alike, that are clean. And with me, it's so important to not incorporate ingredients that are also hormonal disruptors and truly offering safe products for your family, for your kids, and products that also feel salon quality too.
Absolutely. Okay, very cool. So how can people find you? Where can they find you? Where can they follow you and shop from you?
Follow us on Instagram at Sudz Cauldron. That's Sudz Cauldron, like the low cauldron. Think of like a witch cauldron, but we're thinking of it. With us, the cauldron is our symbol of herbalism and getting in touch with our natural roots. So Sudz Cauldron, CAULDRON.com. Sorry, website, sudscauldron.com, and then Instagram at Sudz Cauldron.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Olivia. Thanks for joining me today. This is amazing. And until the next episode of the Beauty and the Brand podcast, bye, everyone.